Joining us next is Jason Cassidy from shinydocs. Jason is going to talk to us about unstructured data, how to overcome the challenge and reap the rewards. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, Jim, it's really good to see you again.
Good to see you again in there. So last time I saw you, we were in Kingston. We were sharing this, and I got this idea. So thanks for joining us. But I was listening to your presentation, and by the way, never follow a better comedian. But you were great. But you were talking about this idea, and then you got into the idea of unstructured data, and I wanted to talk to you about unstructured data and how we deal with it.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, because humans are storytellers naturally, and we don't follow a predictable structure. Obviously, there is a structure to storytelling, but it's not the same as what we think of when we think of a database or traditional machine-to-machine communication. We communicate over our machines to each other visually through documents, audio, media, images, and these things become records and important information that needs to be recalled in the future. And it's just unpredictable as to where the right piece of information is going to be that you're going to need in the future, especially with the diversity of storage and collaboration tools that people are using right now every day.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of discussion about unstructured data, but I'm going to propose, and you can agree or disagree with me, Jason, but I think that a lot of our data is a lot less structured than we think. But it, as you point out, contains that unstructured data, be it stories or whatever, contains a lot of value. Now, the classic example or the classic advice I hear is, make people go back and structure it, label it, manually structure it. Is that realistic?
It's just not realistic. It's a bit of an arms race that we've lost if we think that that's the approach that we're going to take. Is that when people create information, they create it generally with a single purpose in mind. And what you're asking for there is saying people should prepare their data for a diversity of future use cases, which just isn't what they do. Like when you send a technician out to record the vibration reading on a pump, they record the vibration reading on the pump, and then perhaps them and engineers will determine what needs to be done. They're not thinking about how is it going to be recalled in the future? Might somebody get injured because of this? Are we going to make a future purchase to replace equipment? All these things that are future uses of this information is just not considered. All they know is that here's the vibration reading and now it's a record. And it's the core of why enterprise content management failed, is that people who are out there creating this information, they don't want to be deputized as records managers. They don't want to be deputized as information governors. They just want to create and consume information to do their job. So that's why myself and our company shinydocs, we looked outside of traditional content management in order to find solutions for this problem.
Yeah, and I love the way you said that. People don't sign up to become records custodians, or librarians for everybody else. But also that you're so right on with that is we think somehow we can predict the future, and in so many cases, the discovery of the value of information or data is something we only find by serendipity or by trying or without any ability to predict it. And so how did you get to that idea? That I understand it now, having talked to you, but what broke you out from that traditional sort of thinking to start to think in those terms?
Well, we started looking at who's doing a great job of understanding information, and it wasn't who you thought it would be. You would think it might be like Microsoft is a world leader with SharePoint and Teams. That's where a lot of people put their new information. Nobody would accuse the old players who created shared drives of being a great place to put information or email, but those tend to be the most popular spots to put this information. And people generally will just put it wherever. Like they'll put it, if we're sharing in Box or Dropbox, we might put it there. If we're sharing on Teams, we might put it there. And it just ends up, the content in the context that you need is wherever it is. So we looked at organizations like Google and said, what are they doing? Because they're the best on the planet at understanding what information is and where it is and how it relates to the intended use for people. And we asked, why aren't people doing that behind the firewall? And so we started experimenting with that about 5 years ago.
And so I have to ask you, because, and you know, I'm a bit of a fan of shinydocs and what you guys have been doing in there. But how do you do it? How do you cope with all of that in your applications and in your viewpoint in there?
Yeah, well, for sure. So it used to be that you would think, okay, well, our information has so little structure, it's so unpredictable that we have to move it to some place that's predictable or more structured. It turns out it doesn't work. There's just so much information in so many places that, quite frankly, it has an ecosystem associated with it. Like when you go into a big one of our customers who happen to be like oil and gas, nuclear power plants, municipalities, they've got information everywhere, and people happen to be using it where it is. So you can't say to the drafts person, stop using the shared drive and start using some cloud system, because they'll say, no, 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 my application works with this. So you have to go to where their content is. And that's why I invoke Google. I say, well, Google goes to where the content is. You don't build your restaurant's website on Google. It just finds it, and it knows what a menu is and all that type of thing. And it uses artificial intelligence, and it uses traditional mechanisms. It's not humans to find that information. So that's what we've designed. And we do it across huge amounts of data. Like a traditional content management system, you might migrate, let's say, 1 million documents into it. That might take you a couple of years. It'll take up your whole budget. Whereas what we do is say, no, 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 don't do that at all. Just wherever your information is, first find out where it is, how much of it you have, and then start layering on tools to understand what the data is. And then that unlocks all the value, the ability to then manage it properly, perhaps move it to the right spot. That's how shinydocs has approached this. And it's taken a while for people to get the memo because, quite frankly, we're one of the first ones to suggest this. But it's becoming more and more apparent. You hear more people saying about manage in place, or they're dropping this idea of enterprise information management and put it in the right bucket in favor of different tools to understand what your data is and what the business value is.
Yeah, and I think there is this manage in place, mesh, whatever you want to call it, finding the documents where they are and not trying to artificially restructure them. I think is a fresh viewpoint, and it is something there. But how do we put this into practice? Now, I know you're going to say get shinydocs, and that I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. But are there things that companies should do to, whether they're using your solution or not, that can help them really adapt to what is really the practical piece, unstructured data and getting data in place?
Yeah, typically people will feel good about what they know, and then they'll kind of push out what they don't know. It's like I can focus on this thing because I know how to do it, and everything else they say is just noise. But that's not the way that you have to think about your information going forward, because you never know which document you're going to need for the litigation. You'll never know which document that you're going to need to support some asset that fails. You'll never know which documents are going to get hacked and be part of the ransomware attack. You can't plan for these things. So the idea of just saying, I'm going to focus on the important thing and then forget everything else is dead. What you have to do is start off. There's 4 steps. And the first one is identify without passion or prejudice where all of your unstructured information is. Where is a document that might serve my business? Is there some in the cloud? Is there some on file shares? Is there some on shared drives? shinydocs, the first thing it does it automated. It's very straightforward. We're not telling you what it is yet, just where is everything? Where are the duplicates? Where are the obsolete files? Like, this is really important information as a step 0 before you do anything else. Because if you skip that step and you go straight to, well, I'm going to focus on the shared drive and make sure I get the important records out of there, you've guaranteed that you've missed everything in your email, everything on some other cloud system. Like, you have to take this omni approach first, then start identifying what the content is, and then start aligning it with your business processes. And then once you've done that and identified the business value, aligned it with the business processes, then finally you can give the content a life cycle and delete it when you need it. You can start classifying it the way that you need to. People always try to do the last thing first. They get 5% of their data done. It takes up 100% of their budget, and they succeed with 5%, but is that success if 95% is just out there and they say, well, it can't be important because I haven't looked at it? That's the weird cycle that's gone previously. So to reiterate, 4 steps. Where is everything? Second step, what is everything? Third step is how does it align with my business process and what business value does it have? And then the last step is what life cycle can I then give to it? How do I manage it? And if you do that out of order, unfortunately, you're not going to get everything. And what you don't get is the most expensive piece that's going to bite you.
Jason, every time I talk to you, I learn something. And people who know me, I'm a slow learner, but I can learn that. So don't get those out of step, and get those 5 steps right in there. Great stuff in there. Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah,
this is
sure.
something you've worked on for a long time. What's next for us?
So at some point in the future, people are just going to click save. You're going to create that story, that knowledge, that media that you create, and the machines will do the rest. It'll securely share it. It'll identify the personally identifiable information and protect that information. It'll give your content the life cycle that it needs to. That's what we're building. There's lots of big organizations out there trying to build artificial intelligence. Others, we all want to get there. But before my vision and that vision can become reality, we need to just do the basics really well. That means bring all of the unstructured and structured data together to fuel your business. We can do that right now. And until you take those 4 steps, you will never get to that, that supercomputer vision where all you have to do is click save and everything happens just right. We'll never get there unless you start at the right start. So that's my plea to everybody is start by understanding where and what your information is and let everything else flow from there, because I want to realize that vision that the end user will not have to think about it. They just create that story that they want to in the media that they choose, and the machines will take over. But we can't get there until we've really harnessed where people are storing the information, what are they doing with it, and what the business value is.
Jason, thank you so much. Great to see you again, and hope to see you in person soon and share that glass of wine.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Jim. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks.